Hi, this is Dave with Math Gives You Power. I'm here to introduce a series of videos on quadratic equations, how to solve them, and quadratic functions. And next to linear functions and equations, probably quadratic function equations are the most useful in the real world. First, I'm going to have an introductory video. And by the way, my image right now is surrounded by annotations, which are links that can send you to these different lessons as they are so titled. Over here we have an introduction to quadratic equations, solving quadratic equations, and you're going to be introduced to a character who's going to introduce us throughout. His name is Joe Quadratic, and appropriately he is a basketball player. We're going to be introduced to the multiple uses of quadratic equations. Here's some more uses shown. You're going to be introduced in history to a gentleman named Muhammad al-Khwarizmi, who in 830 CE really invented the word we use for algebra now from the title of his book. And in this book he solves this particular quadratic equation using the completing square method, and that equation is x squared plus 10x equals 39. And that was, he solved that before he even had something like letters for variables, negative numbers, or even an equal sign. And then we're going to go into the 5 different methods of solving quadratic equations. We have, first of all, the square root method. We have solving by factoring. We have solving by graphing. And for solving by graphing, there's a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1 is solving by graphing without a graphing calculator. Part 2 involves primarily the use of graphing calculators to solve quadratic equations by graphing. Then there's going to be the completing the square method of solving quadratic equations. And finally, the quadratic formula. And so those are the 5 methods we'll use. And they're going to be separate supplementary videos on these subjects. There's going to be a separate video that shows how to solve quadratic, how to graph quadratic functions. There's going to be a video on evaluating quadratic functions in a graphing calculator, and that's going to be using videos. There's going to be a solving quadratic equations flow chart where you can take any quadratic equation and based on the characteristics of that equation filter you through the most optimal method to solve that particular equation. And finally, there's going to be a video programming the quadratic formula. The 2 versions I've had of this program have had over 110,000 views. So I hope this series will be helpful to you. As far as the rigor level, I've sort of targeted this to what we would call in the United States a Algebra 2 level, and so that a person who's really not too familiar with quadratic equations could probably have some place to start and make some headway on this. Also, these videos could be a good review if you're going into pre-calculus, even calculus college, algebra. So anyway, I hope this series is helpful to you, and I'm going to make some playlists that can also facilitate their availability to you. Thanks for viewing.